How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rumours, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, today, guys, I have another little rumor video for you guys to talk about. Now, I was sent this rumor, and I'm very interested in it, because this is the rumor so far that I kind of believe the most. Now, I don't know who posted it. I can't really tell, and not that I can't tell you, but rather I can't tell because there is no, nothing showing who posted it. But this was sent to me by Pokeraf. Pokeraf actually sent this to me directly through Twitter, and he, through DMs, and asked me, dude, what do you think about this? What's your opinion on this? And I told him, this one so far is the most realistic sounding rumor we've gotten. And the reason why is because it doesn't describe ludicrous theories things like, it's going to be 100 new Pokemon, 100 new this, 100 new this, it's going to be blah 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 blah. Instead, it's a pretty straightforward explanation about what the thought process was when they were making this game, which I kind of appreciate to hear. So let's see what this is all about, and let me know in the comments down below, guys. Do you believe this one, or do you not believe it? I would love to know your opinions. I am still on the fence here, but this is the one that I think sounds the most realistic to me, but I don't think it's real still, but I'm just gonna, you're gonna know by the time we get through this. So let's get started with this right here. So this is what I've got so far. The Pokemon Switch games are Pokemon Yellow sequels, not remakes. They're meant to be celebrated, they're meant to celebrate the change that happened over Pokemon's 20-year history and the promise that lies ahead. The team want to pay respects to the history that has come before, but also realize that moving forward onto the Switch and beyond is a new frontier full of promises. So, full of promise, not promises. So, Pokemon following the player in the overworld, which originated in Pokemon Yellow, finally makes an improved return. More Pokemon appear in the overworld than ever before, due to the Switch's capabilities, which is something we're pretty much all aware of, because we all know that there were animations for every single Pokemon. There were animations for them in Pokemon Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon. So, clearly they're going to reuse those in this, most likely, in this upcoming game. Not based on what this guy's saying, but just based on general, logic. So, he says in here, there's a Battle Arena exclusive to the Switch's locked mode. It has improved textures and graphics. So I'm not sure what he's trying to say here, but then he says something I mentioned at the end of the second point gives you a hint as to what it could be. So he says there's a Battle Arena exclusive to the Switch, Switch's docked mode. It has improved textures and graphics. Now I'm thinking, is this in reference to the hub that we've heard about before? Is this kind of what it's all about, like some sort of hub area which you can enter and you can kind of go into an exclusive battle arena where you fight people and battle them and stuff? That's what I'm kind of thinking with this one. So next up is Eevee has been heavily promoted since the start of 2018, merchandising in the co-mascot in the 21st movie, also appearing alongside Pikachu, of course. Because it is the second version's mascot, base form Pikachu remains the mascot of the other version. Ultra Sun and Moon directly preceded these games because they introduced the Ultra Space and the idea of multiple universes, so to speak. And also all legendaries could be caught there to represent the vastness of the Pokemon timeline and its history. So what he's saying here is that in Ultra Sun and Moon, we had these Ultra Spaces, right, which you can enter, which are alternative realities, alternative timelines and whatnot, and different dimensions, quote unquote. And basically, he's trying to say here that they introduced that there, and they're going to essentially use that as a way to kind of forward this story as well, in a sense, I guess. That's kind of how I'm perceiving it, but I don't know. Then he says, right here, the version of Kanto in these games are technically in two other Ultra Space pockets and separate from the original Game Boy Yellow version. This isn't explicitly explained to the player, but some scientist characters cryptically hint at it when you engage them in dialogue. So he's trying to say here that, you are in a different version of, the Kanto region. You're not in the Kanto from Pokemon Yellow, but it is still a sequel because it's kind of a continuation of Yellow, apparently. So, he then continues with right here that, the two versions are Pikachu, representing tradition, and Eevee, representing evolution and change. After all, Eevee is the evolution Pokemon, which is very true, and Pikachu is the longtime mascot of the aging franchise. The versions are far more different from each other than previously paired games. That is what is taking the team so long, because they are practically two separate regions / versions of Kanto. They're still working very hard to get them released for the holiday 2018, but these games have been in a long development time. So, what he's saying here is that essentially these games are going to be two different things. So we're not going to be having a single game that's exactly the same, but just version exclusives between them. Apparently there's two different versions of Kanto, still similar, but slight differences that will be affecting the gameplay and stuff, as far as I understand it. So, They're still working very hard to get them released in the holiday of 2018, but these games have been in long development. They have been working on the engine since they received the NX dev kit, so the game has been around in one form or another. The project will definitely be released this fiscal year to help meet the Nintendo Switch projected sales goals. Pokémon Smash and another surprise big game announced in the E3 presentation should help them meet the sales goals rather easily. Pikachu is essentially tradition, takes place in the recent past, presumably the 90s, which makes no sense to me. Presumably the 90s, I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. And Eevee evolution takes place in a futuristic version of the world. Not sure where this apocalyptic stuff is coming from, but it is not as dramatic as the rumors are making it out to be. Yes, smaller towns are more run down and bigger cities are more technologically advanced and built up, but apocalyptic is stretching the truth. Kanto is based on Japan after all, which is the home to many companies and the forefront of technology and dreams of the future. So, this is a version of that future realized. This is the future world of harmony Pokemon professors have dreamed of. But of course, it does have its dark side, with two opposing views. I mean, there must be some sort of compromise, right? The reason these two versions must be in two separate Ultra Space pockets is because the same basic stories take place in both versions, albeit with subtle changes to reflect the different environments. This could simply be viewed as history repeating itself, but alternative versions of classic characters show up in both. So essentially what he's trying to say here is we're probably going to see a dark evil team popping up, an evil group of individuals popping up and, trying to destroy the world and that sort of stuff, which makes sense. It goes, hand in hand with every Pokemon game essentially. It's just kind of the way things work. So, let's see. So next up here is then, this could simply be viewed as history repeating itself, but the alternative versions of classic characters show up in both, which indicates they can technically be in the same timeline. The Ultra Space was set up in previous games to explain these appearances and break the rules, but the team is smart enough not to solve this technical ID by not to slow down, but not to shove this technical ID down the player's throat and break the rules, but the team is smart enough. Okay, so sorry, I'm messing up right now. Longtime fans will probably be the only ones who care about this explanation anyway, and they are smart enough to come up with a conclusion themselves. Well, that's fair enough. So I'm sorry for messing up right now. I was a bit confused because there's a huge amount of text and it's really, really small text. So it's kind of hard to understand what it's saying right here. But basically what he's trying to point out is that there is kind of this thing going on where you're in two different Ultra Space pockets, two alternative versions, but it could be in the same kind of timeline, but in a sense they're different as well. But they're probably not going to tell us about it, but it's something we're going to have to discover ourselves, and it's just something we're going to have to speculate on ourselves, which does make sense to me. And this is why I feel like this is so far the most reasonable one, because it gives us kind of this way of explaining things that is so different from all the other leaks, so to say, or these rumors. This one actually is more logical. It's to the point, not talking about these crazy things oh, there's going to be Ultra Shinies or all this stuff. It does it later on, further down you get. It kind of talks about those things, slightly, but not Ultra Shinies and stuff, really, I think. But in general, this is so far the one that feels the most realistic to me. So, following the theme, the main story's conflict with the evil organization, or enemy organization, is the drive to destroy traditions in their quest to make a huge leap forward, and that will change and involve the future. They view tradition as holding the world back. The player must help them to see otherwise. So this is interesting because we've heard about rumors in the past where they're saying oh, we're gonna get a game which is tradition versus versus innovation, right? Which is a cool concept, right? Because you're taking the past and you're mixing it with the future. Because think about it, yellow is from the past and we're now 20 years in the future. So mixing those two together, it's an interesting concept. And if this evil team, because that sounds like something a Pokemon evil team would want to do, right? Eradicate the past and only do things, with technology in the future and only focus on the future, but don't think about the past or look at the past or use the past as a good reference or, still follow the traditional ways of things, right? But just look at the future and how the future can help you instead. So, that's a fair point. That's an interesting theme, I would say. So they say here, one said it is more of a disagreement between two movements than a diabolical scheme. So this is more going to be as far as I understood from what this guy's saying, is that it's not going to be one of those themes about one is an evil team rather, but it's going to be more it's a group, it's an organization that has views that differ from these others, which they want to kind of progress and go more the route of technology, while the other ones want to kind of stick with the tradition of maybe catching Pokemon and yada yada yada. So Basically, we continue here. So they say, this is quite interesting. The reason movie 20 and movie 21 are in alternate histories, or alternate like universes, was to hint at the ideas presented with these games as well. As I said, this has been in the works for a while. So he's saying here that essentially the reason the movies are the way they are is to essentially present us with the option that Ash that we know isn't the same Ash throughout the seasons, throughout the movies, and that sort of stuff. It's a different Ash. I mean, maybe the first season up until X and Y was the same, but past that point, Sun and Moon, movie 20 and movie 21, things are changing. Things are not the same anymore. Things are different, so to say. We're going down a path where things are going to, branch out differently, and it's not going to be just the basic stuff we've seen in the past, where, everything just falls in a specific line. Things are merging into, or rather, splitting into different sections. What I mean by that is, we're splitting into different dimensions, different timelines. There is no way to, put down a precise timeline for Pokemon anymore. It's, impossible to do. So, I don't know, guys. Either way, so they continue down here and say that the games were developed to excite longtime Pokemon fans, but also to be accessible for the newfound fan base. And what they are talking about here is Pokemon Go. So they say actually here, so Pokemon Go's popularity during production excited the team and caused them to add some more features to ease accessibility, which longtime fans may originally scratch their heads at. But they need not worry, because the game was rather far along in design before the Go crazy hit. So using Go as a marketing to bring more casual players to try the game does not reach as deep as you may think. So what he's saying here is kind of as a way to ease our worries, right? So don't worry, Pokemon Go won't be involved in the way you think it will be, right? It's going to be small. It's going to have a small involvement, because by the time they started development on this game, Pokemon Go had, just been released, and, they didn't really, instantly, they added a few features just to make it easier for people to integrate, from Pokemon Go in, but it didn't, implement it so hard that it's, necessary to play Pokemon Go to experience and have fun with this game. It's just a small little connection there. So that's good. That is awesome. That actually sounds really great. So after all, they would be crazy not to include Go in some way, which is true, because it's good for them to do that in a business move, because they would just make more money and sell more games if they can involve that huge community that is the Pokemon Go community. Then he says, all 807 plus Pokemon appear in the World Pokedex, aka the National Dex, so it's called the World Pokedex instead of the National Dex. Okay, fair enough. And you can get a decent amount of them between the two versions through some familiar gimmicks. They've also peppered in some more popular Pokemon from newer generations in the wild, but only a small number per route as to not alienate older fans who are returning to this franchise. The philosophy behind every decision in developing the games was really about balancing the tradition the tradition that the classic fans and now the newer Pokemon Go fan base are familiar with, while providing loyal longtime fans with significant, exciting new aspects. And, of course, there are quite a number of regional forms. Again, this was a setup by the previous games. Some are exclusive by version, along with some new fan service evolutions that the senior team has heard fans asking about for a while. I couldn't come up with the exact numbers, so that's fair enough. So apparently, at the bottom right here, that's where usually I'm always sketchy about things. But it doesn't say, there's no mention of no ultra shinies, no mega evolutions, none of that. It's just regional variants, which is something we definitely will see more of, because they introduced it in Alola, and it's so stupid of them to just remove it all of a sudden again, you know what I mean? So they're definitely going to introduce that, most definitely, that will be a thing. And that kind of if this guy is for real, then he's confirming it. But again, this is just a rumor, guys, so don't take this at face value as real. I'm just sharing it with you guys because you guys keep asking me about your, my opinions on it, what I think about it. So far, in all honesty, this is the one that sounds the most realistic to me. Out of all the rumors I've read recently, this is the one that sounds the most realistic. All the other ones have been kind of iffy for me, and I'm nah, this is just somebody making stuff up just for the sake of making something up, and just, sounding funny or trying to, make people happy and whatnot, or rile them up. This one, it sounds the most logical to me. It just sounds like the one that makes the most sense to me, but I could be wrong. I don't know, guys. Either way, I want to know your opinions on it. What do you think about it? Let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. My name is Rumours. Have a great day, and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.